Please let me jump in, and I think I'm going to give Colin an aneurysm and tell him that the three most inspirational leaders that I've served under in various parts of the world are Her Majesty the Queen, Margaret Thatcher, and Helen Ziller. And if Solly isn't going to get in bed with Helen Ziller and say her comments on her comments on colonization.
Well, I don't easily get an aneurysm, but I do disagree with you totally.
But the truth is that everybody knows it. And actually, the best thing is never to listen to political leaders. Don't listen to me or you or the leaders. What do people do with their feet? And you see that the more a country was developed under colonization, the more ordinary African people are actually suffering the nonsense for the likes of the people that you've worked for. Move towards where colonization last was, because actually that's where the quality of life is best. And actually, yes, there were wrongs. Well, that's the fact. You can't argue the fact. And colonization, yes, had.
I will most definitely argue it because it's not a fact.
And everything in life is nuanced, but actually there were definite gains, and you can see it. Ordinary people of all colors and races understand it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, it's very interesting that you bring up this context of neocolonization. Now, the United Nations described neocolonization in 2018 in a report from its Human Rights Committee. And its description was this: a state using the letter of the law to impose its will in defiance of a higher moral law, to impose its will on a weaker party against theirs. And they describe that as neo-colonialism, which, and actually in the context of my cause, Cape Independence, is exactly what your party is doing on the people of the Western Cape. For 30 years, we've never voted for you. The majority of people in the Western Cape have never voted for the ANC. We don't want to be governed by you. And actually, at this point in time, in the midst of a chronic crime problem, the Western Cape people, the Premier of the province, the Mayor of Cape Town, backed by the people of the province who elected him on that ticket, is pleading with your party for control of policing so they can stop themselves getting murdered. And you're saying no. And that is neo-colonialism. And you talk about people getting their democratic will. Are you going to allow the people of the Western Cape to have their democratic will? Are you going to allow them to have a referendum and decide if they want to be part of South Africa and if they want to continue as part of this horse and pony show that your party's been so responsible for?
Okay. I must respond to that. I'm insisting to respond to that.
I promise you.
And you will give me a chance to respond to that, because that is a load of poppycock.
So I also want to respond to my question as well.
Roman, please go ahead.
Yeah. So Cole, I think you do understand that there's a benefit to colonialism because your party has ruled over South Africa, which is a construct of the British Empire, and you have done so for 30 years without any anticipation or any intent to break it up as it was before the British arrived. So under those auspices, there is a benefit to colonialism because the ANC have taken something colonialism has created and have ruled it for 30 years. So how do you square that peg?
Roman, we got a United Union of South Africa, which the African National Congress, as the people of South Africa, inherited. I am not saying that we should have broken that up. That would have been untenable and it would not have been possible. But at the same time, the fact that we got this unity under British colonialism does not mean that that colonial rule was benevolent, was good, and did not exploit the majority of people in this country. You see, you are making, you are putting two things together and you're trying to justify them while there is a fundamental issue here. Yes, there is now a united South Africa. But let us not deny that it is the British colonial rule that to a very large extent caused the damage and the suffering and the exploitation of the people of South Africa. The African National Congress has been attempting to ameliorate that, to address it. Under difficult circumstances, and sorry you may laugh, but it is true, it has failed in many ways. But Phil, I can assure you there is not going to be a breaking up of the Union of South Africa and the Republic of South Africa. We are not going to allow the Western Cape to drift off under a racist democratic alliance which is not taking care of the majority of Black people in the Western Cape. And your definition of colonialism is indeed a very selective one. I will add to that colonialism in its essence is, and new colonialism is the economic power to exploit and continue to exploit the majority of people and subjugate them to a construction that was originating from colonialism. And that is exactly what we see in South Africa. And currently we have white monopoly capitalism in control of this country, which is the consequence of colonialism. Roman, are you hyperventilating?
Not in the slightest, but what you're describing is ANC rule for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Oppressing, subjugating people for your own benefit under the auspices of the colonial borders of South Africa. It's exactly what you are doing, not personally, but the party you represent.
That's not what I'm describing.
Okay.
I'm describing to you the continuation of white monopoly capitalism since 1994 and the failure of my party, the African National Congress, and that is why I'm so strongly in opposition to the current leaders in the ANC. The failure of my party, the ANC, is to address this white monopoly capital continuation of the control of the economy in this country.
No,
the ANC has failed to address that, and that is the biggest failure of the ANC and the biggest challenge of what we have to do.
Rule. That is the great failure of the ANC, is actually bringing freedom to the people of South Africa who don't want this to be a nation. And most people are not au fait with the idea of South Africa being a nation under a colonial contract.
I fully dispute that with you.
Well, gentlemen,
the majority of South Africans want to be in a united nation, but they do not want to be under the exploitation of a small group of mainly white men linked to imperialist powers such as the United Kingdom
South
and the United States.
Come on, that's public up. South Africans do not want to be under the rulership of a government that's led by Black men and women that steals, that has no respect, that keeps sending public money to Cuba, that appoints people who are discredited into important positions of power. The national government, the assembly, is filled with people who should be in prison. That's what South Africans don't want. No.
South Africans do want a united South Africa. South Africans do want to be ruled by the majority of people in this country and representatives of that majority. I agree with you, South Africans do not want to be ruled by crooks and mafia-style bosses, and Cyril Ramaphosa is the worst example of that. And that is one of the reasons why we're insisting that he must go.
Okay.
Can
you just finish this round? And I want you to go back to the royal family, please. Well, Carl and then Roman. Phil, sorry.
Yeah, all I want to say is, look, decolonization is self-determination. Self-determination is decolonization. Why does your government support support self-determination for the Palestinians, self-determination for the Western Saharans, self-determination for the South Sudanese, but then you don't support self-determination for the people of the Western Cape? I mean, it's completely hypocritical.
Who are those people of the Western Cape who want self-determination? A couple of whites.
Well, no, not ironically.
I can assure you that the majority of people who live in the Western Cape want to be part of a united South Africa.
Well, let's have we're calling for a referendum.
Self-determination by whites that you want.
Well, that's not the facts, and that's the thing. But a referendum will tell us that, and I'm happy to be wrong. But you're the one that we're too scared to have that referendum.
One of the issues that we ought to have discussed in this debate, which we haven't yet, is the issue of restitution. And how do we actually address the fact that so much has been stolen from colonies such as South Africa, and how what has been stolen is returned without compensation? Because remember, Solly, we
don't have a lot of time.
Stolen goods.
I know where you're going in the discussion. It's out there, but we're discussing the Queen. Who is just
yes,
now.
And the Queen
I would like to ask
part of the themes, and therefore restitution is part of the subject of discussion.
Well, I'm the host of the discussion, if you let me, please.
That's good. Right. Please proceed.
My question to you is this. The Queen Elizabeth II has passed. Nothing except that she's going to be replaced by her son, now King Charles III. will change. All right. So what would you say? Maybe let's start with you, Carl, very quickly. If you were to meet, to have an audience with King Charles III, what would you say to him?
I will say to King Charles, the most important thing that you have to do as the new king is to make sure that there's restitution of the thievery that took place from the colonies, that the money, the gold, the diamonds, all the resources that you've taken from those colonies have to be returned, and that you have to issue an unequivocal apology for what had been done under colonialism, and make sure that there is, in fact, with that apology, because apologies are empty words as long as it is not accompanied by restitution, the return of those stolen goods to those colonies in order to help to empower those countries truly to gain control of their economies and be in charge of their own destiny. That's the message I will give to King Charles.
Well, I would say to you that you can return all the wealth and the gold to Africa as long as Africa is run by thieves, that the people of Africa are not going to see the benefit of that wealth. That's the truth.
Well, hopefully when that happens,
we all talk about returning this to a cabal of criminals who are going to take the people of Africa. Don't benefit from anything.
Well, then empower the people in Africa to remove the thieves, as we are trying to do right here in South Africa. The thief from Pala Pala.